All right, so for lesson 2 of our review unit, we are going to be looking at fractions. Now, when we look at fractions, the number on the top is what we call the numerator, and the number on bottom is what we call the denominator. And then there are 3 main types of fractions that we want to look at. The first one is going to be proper fractions, where we have a small number on top and a large number on bottom. An improper fraction is the second one. So this one is always less than 1, is greater than 1. And this is called an improper fraction. That is where the top number is large and the bottom number is small. The last that we have is a mixed number, which contains a whole number plus a fraction. We can convert between mixed numbers and improper fractions fairly easily. If we are going from a mixed number to an improper fraction, like say we have our 4 and a 5th, for example, I can go through and multiply the whole number by the denominator. So in this case, I'm going to go 4 times 5. That's going to give me 20. Then I'm going to add the numerator to that number. So then I'm going to add 1, which will give me 21. And I'm going to use the existing denominator. So I will end up with 21 over 5. If there is a negative in front of the mixed number, then the entire result ends up negative, but you can ignore the negative until the end in that case. So for instance, let's try that again. I have 3 times 4 is equal to 12. I am then going to add on 1 from right here, and that's going to give me 13, but I'm going to keep my denominator, so I will get 13 over 4. Same thing on this side, I can ignore the negative for now, so I end up with 4 times 9, which is 36. Then I'm going to add 5 from right there, which is going to give me 41. I'm going to keep the denominator, so it's going to be 41 over 9, but now I have to bring back the negative, so that means that my entire value is going to be negative. So it's negative 41 over 9 is my final answer. Now, if I'm adding and subtracting fractions, we must find a common denominator. It will always be your first step. Then we're just going to add and subtract the numerators and then reduce to what we call lowest terms. So when we are looking for a common denominator, we are finding any number that in this case, both 3 and 9 can multiply into. Now in this case, we have it nice and easy because 3 times 3 is 9 and 2 times 3 would give us a different value, but then I already have the common denominator of 9. So my common denominator here is 9. If you can't see an obvious one, an easy thing to do is multiply both denominators together because then you know that both of them can go into that value. So in this case, I will end up getting 2 times 3 is 6 over 3 times 3 is 9. And then I'm adding 5 over 9. I cannot add fractions together that have different denominators because I will end up getting numbers that don't make sense in that case. But now what I can do is I'm going to keep my denominator of 9, and 6 plus 5 will give me 11, so I have 11 over 9. Now, if we want to practice converting between improper fractions and mixed numbers, because we can see we have a bigger number and a smaller number, so this is an improper fraction. What I would do in this case is 11 minus 9 is going to give me 2. And I can see that 9 has gone into this 11 once. I'm just going to write 4. So that means I have one whole set of 9 over 9, and then I have 2 remaining, so I will end up with 2 over 9. Now, if I go down and we talk about multiplying fractions, to multiply fractions, denominators don't have to be the same. We are simply going to multiply the numerator together, and then we are going to multiply the denominator together. and then reduce the fraction to lowest terms, which just means if the top and bottom are both divisible by the same number, reduce it down until it's the smallest possible fraction that still represents it. So in this case, what I'm going to do is 2 times 7 and then 3 times 6. I'm just multiplying straight across and multiplying straight across. This is going to give me 2 times 7 is 14 over 3 times 6 is 18. Now I can see that this already can be reduced down. Starting off, they're both even numbers, so if I just divide the top by 2 and the bottom by 2, you know if you have two even numbers, you can always at least reduce it down by dividing by 2. If you have a number at 0, if both of them are at 0 or 5, you can divide it by 5. But in this case, I will get 14 divided by 2 is 7 over 18 divided by 2 is 9. Now I know this is in simplest terms because 7 is a prime number. If I'm dividing fractions, I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. If you don't remember what that means, say I have 1 over 2, the reciprocal to that is 2 over 1. If I had 2 over 5, the reciprocal to that is 5 over 2. It's just taking the fraction and flip it. So then what we have is we have to reduce to lowest terms. You always have to reduce to lowest terms when working with fractions. That is a step you don't want to miss. But in this case, I'm going to flip my 5 and 4. So I'll get 2 over 3 times 5 over 4. Now I can just go across the top and across the bottom like I regularly would with multiplication. Now I'll get 2 times 5 is 10 over 4 times 3 is 12. I can reduce this down by 2, which will give me 5 over 6. And that is as low down as I can go. So we're going to do a few more examples of those, and then we are done for this lesson. Now, if I am looking here at 2 and 5/6 plus 5/8, I have to convert my whole mixed number, my mixed number to an improper fraction. So again, I'm going to do 2 times 6 plus 5. It's going to give me 2 times 6 is 12, plus 5 is 17 over 6, plus 5 over 8. Now I need to find a common denominator. So my common denominator is going to be, in this case, I can take a look and I want to say 24 is a common denominator. That it is. So all I did there was 24 divided by 6 gave me 4, and 24 divided by 8 gave me 3, which means this side I'm going to times by 3. And this side I'm going to times by 4. And that will give me 4 times 17 is 68 over 24 plus 15 over 24. And then I can add these two together. That will get 68 plus 15 is 83 over 24. We can take a look and see if we can reduce that down. 1 is an odd number and 1 is an even number. And I believe that is already in its lowest possible form. If I am wrong and you find one that it can divide down to, you may do that as well. Now, in this case, I'm going to have 3 times 21 plus 11 times 20 is 63. Plus 11 is going to give me 74 over 21 plus negative 13 over 14. I know that these both have 7s in them. So if I take a look through, eight, What I'm going to do here is just times this side by 21 and times this side by 14. And I will get 14 times 74 is 1036 over, gives me a common denominator of 294. Times 21 is 273 over 294, and now I can add them together. I will end up getting 1036 plus 273. That is a negative value, so overall I'm going to subtract them because they're opposite numbers. I will get 736 over 294. I can divide them both by 2. 4, 6, 8. Just testing how many times I can divide these down. Okay, so to start off with, I can go 2, 2, and that will give me 736 divided by 2 is 368 over 294 divided by 2 is 147. And I believe that is lowest possible terms. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the last 1, 2, 3, 4 for you to try and solve on your own, and I will post up the answers to them as well.